So, hello, good morning. Today, we're going to talk about building security people. Normally, when I give talks, I tell things like incident response stories, or I talk about attacker trends, or maybe I talk about cool malware. Or if you know me really well, I'll tell you weird tricks to hack Windows, like plugging in a smart card to run arbitrary Java as system. A lot of times, you'll hear me talk about event ID 1102. Who knows what event ID 1102 is? That's your event logs were cleared. It's probably the event log monitoring that you should be doing. A lot of times in my talks, I troll Will Harmjoy. But that's not why I'm here today. Today, I am here to exit my comfort zone, and I'm going to talk about security people. I'm a security person. You're probably a security person if you're here. Security people have unplugged my laptop.
It's a feature.
I don't think it's me.
Joe to the rescue.
Okay, so I'm going to turn my laptop around, and you're going to watch it on this little screen. All right, here we go.
You just wiggle.
I told you we would be ad-libbing and doing a rap battle. All right, cool. So security people seem to be cool. Security people seem to be relatively well compensated. They seem to travel around. They seem to do cool things. They seem to be able to do things like aftermarket additions that invalidate the warranties on their otherwise boring Volkswagens, which are totally done responsibly and in compliance with all laws of Washington State. Security people are cool. So everybody wants to be a security person. I hear a lot of people saying, I want to be a security person. Is there a roadmap to being a security person? Do we have any way we have one single path to get to being a security person? And oftentimes, I get this in the form of the question of, how did you get to where you are? At which point, I'm like, no, this is danger. You really don't want to know this. You really want to stop. Because the reason that I'm a security person and the reason that I'm on this stage giving you a keynote today, or have given any talk in security, is because I am an epic failure. We're going to talk about me. This is awkward and uncomfortable. But let's talk about how my life was supposed to look. So I actually started college at 14. That was kind of cool because I come from the middle of nowhere where people don't even go to college. And then I was a dancer. I was in a pre-professional ballet company. I thought I might actually graduate from college. I thought I might become some sort of forensic pathologist, dancer, ninja, seeker, agent, and maybe I'd become Carmen Sandiego. But what really happened? So I started my college at 14, got that part done, and then I got incredibly ill and actually failed out of college. Okay. But then I went and I actually got a job at Carnegie Mellon. I went to school at Carnegie Mellon, and then I dropped out of Carnegie Mellon. And I took an incredibly awesome, high-paying job at a very fancy law firm, where I was promptly fired for being a jerk. But then I received a call on my cell phone that had this 425 area code and said Redmond, Washington. And I'm like, what? Why are you calling me? And it turns out it was Microsoft. And I said, I never want to work at Microsoft. I don't really like Microsoft. And someone gave me the advice of, well, if you want to change something, perhaps the best way to do that is from the inside. So now I work at Microsoft. But all throughout that entire chain of events, all throughout my life and probably yours, there are turning points. There are decisions that come up to you, and there are chances for you to kind of make a change in what you're doing. And often as you're going along, you're going to hear negative voices. Those negative voices might come from other people, or they might come from inside your own head. And those negative voices might tell you to stop what you're doing, or do something, or because you fell off the path that you intended in life, that therefore you are bad at everything. Okay. This is actually something someone once said to me. They said, I wouldn't bother applying there, don't get your hopes up. Well, that was for Carnegie Mellon, and I did apply there, and I did get that job, and okay. This is something else that someone said to me. This is actually a comment that was left on an internal presentation I gave at Microsoft in 2016. Presenter has been presenting on topics they don't have sufficient background in. Well, considering APTs were only invented in 2014, who the heck has sufficient background in incident response? Because that is what I was presenting on. So we're all insecurity people. Because it turns out that those negative voices, once you get them outside or in, do make you feel a little bit insecure. But I also like the phrase insecurity people because when I decided to become a security person, most of the people who were famous for being security people were insecurity people. They were breaking things. They were hacking things. There was not a lot of discussion about fixing things, and there certainly were no presentations on the Windows firewall. So I joined Microsoft. It's been a little bit of a journey. It's been a little bit of a winding road, like everyone's life is. There have been moments where I could have absolutely mic dropped on what I'm doing. I could have left. I could have chased money. I could have chased titles. I could have chased other things. But I joined Microsoft with a reason, and I stuck it out. And eventually this happened. That's pretty cool. But when we think about that, when we think about what we do in our life and why we do it, here are some things I've got to do as an epic failure. Well, I got to do this. I got to do this. I've done this. Somebody in the audience likes this because they tweeted me at it. I did that. I presented on the same stage as Raymond Chen. I discussed the best way to make kale salad with my coworker while incidentally we were being filmed for the Today Show. I did this, which is a presentation on demystifying the Windows firewall. So now there exists one. In my life as an epic failure, where I did not intend to be a security person, I've got to go lots of cool places. I've been to Switzerland, I've been to Poland, I've been to Hong Kong, I went to Hobbiton, I took a selfie with an emo. One of my talks is actually in the new hire training for my division. Okay, so if I'm a failure, and it took me getting to be a failure to become a security person, I'm pretty fucking good at it. Okay, so I talked about myself. That was really awkward. We got that part out of the way. HXX files are actually just portable executables. A portable executable is something that can be used to execute code. You can make things with different extensions that are also portable executables that don't end in .exe or .dll. This is one of them. Okay, I feel better now. I'm not the only one. When we talk about building security people, so many of my friends have a story that looks like that. A story that looks like, I didn't actually plan to be here, I had to suffer a little bit to get here, and nobody really gave me instructions on how to do it. So I'm going to talk about one of my awesome friends. I'm going to talk about Devin Kerr, human being. Devin Kerr has since changed into that, where now he is the director of response at Endgame. You may know him from this amazing white paper on WMI, literally the white paper on WMI. If you haven't read it, go read it. So let's talk about Devin's career journey. Devin's career journey looks a little bit like this. He worked on a farm. He was a junior Linux admin. He did UV pasteurization systems for dairy farms. He worked at college. He did humanities in college. He worked at a restaurant, multiple roles. He worked at an e-commerce startup. Then he did technology retail. He did bridge maintenance. He did college again, this time for network administration. Then he did roofing repair, specializing in tile, slate, and copper. He then moonlighted, did a little bit of Last Wire. He did some more moonlighting. He did barn restoration, specifically the 1880 to 1920s period. He then did masonry. He's actually very good at masonry. He did ISP operations. He did some highly available infrastructure, wireless infrastructure, did some forensic lab constructing, a little bit more forensic stuff. He did security operations. He did IR consulting at Mandiant. Then he did IR consulting at Mandiant, a FireEye company. And now he's director of response at Endgame. So lots of people, as I talk to, have this sort of journey in their life where things are not necessarily laid out for them the way that they should be. So okay, now we're a success. We're successes, supposedly. We're pretty cool, we have cool jobs, we do cool things. But now what? We had Blue Hat a couple weeks ago. Blue Hat is Microsoft's wonderful security conference, and our keynote presenter had this in his keynote. He's like, why am I here? And he's talking about a conversation he had with someone where he said, I didn't know you were in security. And that person said, yeah, it's pretty great. And he said, I'm burnt out. And I, totally not me, said, you should write a deck about that. So that's where our keynote came from. Because in my version of that conversation, which incidentally and coincidentally, I totally had a conversation like that too. I said, the thing that keeps me going is mentoring people. I do a lot of cool stuff on a day-to-day basis. I get to fly around the world. I get to actually save people's infrastructures, or in one or two instances, literally save people by stuff that we're doing. I get to see a lot of cool stuff. I get to do a lot of cool things. But what's really given me the most optimism recently in my career has been being able to actually take people and uplift them and build my own security people. Because it's really weird and kind of uplifting to be able to take someone who comes from a similar background to you and save them some of the steps in the journey. So we're gonna talk about one of the security people. We're gonna talk about a guy named Justin. So Justin, he, prior to 2018, had work experience that included climbing telephone poles. He was doing wiring of telephone cables, and he had submitted over 152 job applications. In 2018, he joined the Windows Defender ATP hunting team as a vendor. He works for us as a vendor on a contract. He logs his investigations that he does into the Intel system that my team runs. One of the things he did was he uncovered a massive malware campaign using an Oracle WebLogic 0 day, which was followed by Eternal Blue to move laterally throughout networks. Achievement unlocked, Senpai has noticed you. So I was like, wow, okay, this is kind of cool. You're actually doing really cool work and you're really smart. What can we do with this? It turns out what we can do with this is give him absolutely anything. He will work on it and he will learn it. So what he does now is he has found a massive human-operated ransomware campaign. He discovered over 3 APTs on customer networks that would have been undetected. He presented at Blue Hat with me, and he held a 30-minute conversation with a guy named John Lambert, you may know him from Twitter, about hunting methodologies. John Lambert's what's called a technical fellow at Microsoft. I don't think Justin understands that most people don't hold 30-minute conversations with John Lambert in their first year as a security person. So what makes this different, right? This is a person who applied to 152 jobs and didn't get them. This is a person who is almost the same age as me. Why did they not get a security job until then? They are clearly disturbingly, threateningly brilliant and motivated. Why? It's opportunity, right? Opportunities are what allow people to thrive. When you get a chance to do something and you get a chance to have somebody who's going to guide you along the way. When we think about how we build people up and how we give them things to learn, Justin actually went to college for network security. He has a degree in it, but it didn't work, right? It did not get him the opportunities that he needed. Opportunities come through different places, and we need to make them a lot less random. Because when they're random opportunities, that's how you get career paths that look like Devin's and mine. What can we do to get those opportunities to people and help identify them faster? As a side note, yesterday I actually learned that it wasn't me who inspired Justin to be a security person at all. He actually went to a Nine Inch Nails concert with Andy Robbins, who wrote Bloodhound in 2014. Okay. Andy showed him pen testing on his laptop, which apparently changed his life and made him want to be a security person from that 5-minute interaction. So this is yet another example of a Spectre ops person being cooler than me. Incidentally, he discovered that because one of the things that I teach the people that I'm mentoring is that their main responsibility is to give back in whatever way they can, and Justin chose to do that by donating to MDA, which is a big cause that Andy supports. So if you like Bloodhound and if you want to give back, donate to MDA. Also, I haven't actually seen Nine Inch Nails in person, and I love them, so I'm jealous. But impact. Impact. In those 15 minutes that Andy didn't even remember occurred, he changed someone's life. He showed them something that he didn't know existed, right? Those 15 minutes of Andy firing up his laptop and doing whatever he was doing in 2014 changed Justin's life. You can do that too, right? This is an opportunity that's being presented by exposing people to things they've never seen before. Where I come from, in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, nobody knows it's actually possible to work at Microsoft. Like, the career options are drive a truck or get pregnant. I wish I was kidding. I'm sorry. But like, that is an opportunity for impact and an opportunity to give someone an opportunity. Talk to people who don't even know security people exist, and you can have the creation of an opportunity for someone. But opportunity alone doesn't actually give it. People that really succeed, they have success helpers and they have things that are maybe innate to them. There are people that are called self-starters in Silicon Valley speak. They're people who kind of like just go with the flow and know what to do. that is in no way, shape, or form something that's natural. If you're a self-starter, you probably learned it through failing a lot as a child. Maybe you played Mario and kept falling off of things. That's how you become a self-starter. So what does a success helper look like for a self-starter person? How can you give somebody who you've given an opportunity to the groundwork for how to move forward? Well, with Justin's case, he takes his notes and then he shares his notes with others. He mentors other people to make them better. He actually reads and watches what I suggest. Shocking. There's a lot of people who will say, teach me your magical stuff, and then I hand them a 30-page document and a bunch of videos, and then I ask them what they thought of them, and they're like, oh, I didn't watch them. I'm like, oh. Okay. He has questions. It is okay to ask questions. I'm sure it probably was pretty freaking intimidating the first moment when I looked at him and said, that's not how DNS works. But then he said, please tell me how DNS works. So if you're working with someone, questions. The biggest thing, though, is he builds on his knowledge and tries new things. As he's learned new stuff, he's developed new ways to hunt inside of Windows Defender ATP telemetry. He's built on what he knows to increase his capabilities. We don't just stop at what we know. I did not just stop at Windows event logs, in spite of what my blog might say. You learn more, and you go beyond that, right? And you bring your own perspective and uncover new things. This is important. New people see things differently than you do. They see things in a different light based on their life and their cultural experiences. Someone who has come from a different background than you is going to see things differently than you, and that's going to give you new perspective. So when you give someone an opportunity, you can also give them a framework for success by teaching them how to do these things. So we can scale success. We can actually make this carry on. Because this is Michael, also known as PB. PB is who Justin is mentoring. So we can scale this, because you'll notice that what makes PB successful is he takes notes, he reads them, he shares them with others, he watches the stuff he suggested to, he asks questions, he builds knowledge, and he brought a completely new perspective to things because he comes from a different technological background. But what came out of both of these people when I was working with them? They went to school together. They went to school, they did the same program. And what they told me out of everything I taught them, by yelling at them, was, we didn't learn any of this in school. So these are people that literally followed what should have been the roadmap to being a security person. And I'm not throwing their school under the bus. They learned really, really good things there. They learned a lot of very practical knowledge. But actually, Will Harmjoy, person who I troll in every talk, told me the other day that he had a dev background. He knew how to code, but he didn't know how to apply it until he met the guy who runs Spectre Ops. He's the one who taught him how to actually apply the knowledge he had. So what didn't they learn in school? They didn't learn how to apply what they know or how to think. This is the real world experience that all of us grizzled veterans who have tried to fix something on a Saturday morning know. So how can we kind of get that moving? And what can we do to make that better? Because the important part about security is it involves humans. So humans are a fundamental flaw or gift to security, right? So we get a lot of flack on humans in security because they do things like enable macros. But humans are also, thank you. But humans are also what allow us to scale and change and build how we think, right? So when we think about what we didn't learn in school, we didn't learn what you have learned from your human experiences. And when we think about humans, let's think about teams of humans. So I am not a manager, nor do I play one on TV. So we're going to talk about my boss. My boss, who is known as Ryan, it may not be a security boundary, but that doesn't mean it has to suck. Kivit. So Ryan's background is Windows internals and security in the operating system. He's a hardcore debugger. He's a hardcore dev who majored in business in college. So another person with an interesting path. And his prior experience at Microsoft was literally, he decided he wanted to own UAC for a while. User account control, that thing with all the bypasses. Ryan's work caused it to be an RS5. All of those bypasses went away. Shh. So most of the user mode comm stuff he took away, right? So this is his background. His background when he has made it to be a principal level manager at Microsoft is in deep kernel nerd stuff. But then we needed to form a team. and we needed to form a team called Windows Defender Threat Intelligence. There are multiple threat intelligence teams at Microsoft. There are multiple red teams, there are multiple blue teams. We all have our own role. With Windows Defender Threat Intelligence, we had to fit into a niche that was different, and we had to think differently than other people, because we track both commodity and targeted threats, and we do it through behaviors versus through other ways that other people track them. We track what is bad happening, and then we worry about who is doing it, right? So we had to think differently. So Ryan's a very smart person when it comes to building teams of humans, because what he did is he got somebody with a traditional military SIG intelligence background, he got somebody from a traditional AV background, he got somebody who does a lot of dark web research, and he got me. So in building this team with the IR professional vampire on the end, we could have had a lot of risks there, because a lot of times when you bring people from different backgrounds with different ideas, you can build silos. Because you may dig your heels into the ground and you may think, this is the right way to do it. I have been doing this for 2 decades. This is the right way to do it. But that doesn't have to be that way, because you can be a good teammate not by protecting your contributions, but by scaling your contributions. You can make other people know what you know, and you can make them work together. So in the case of our team, we have all of these people from diverse backgrounds, and I mean diverse backgrounds in several different ways there. And what we did is we sort of all merged, and we formed a hive mind. Because if you want to level up and you want to move behind a quarter circle punch, that's a Street Fighter joke, you have to learn new skills, and you learn new skills from new people and new experiences. And that brings us to change, because change is really, really scary for a lot of people. And when you build new security people, they may be experiencing change. You may be taking them out of an economic situation that they're not comfortable with. Their life may have been bad, and you're giving them new things. They may suffer from what is known in the security industry as imposter syndrome. And that may actually affect their ability to do things. But change is big for all of us as an industry too, because when we talk about things like scaling and building diversity and things like that, change means putting our money where our mouth is and actually going out and finding new people. Because new people with those new ideas, they typically may not be coming from your top shelf universities, they may not be coming from computer science backgrounds, and they may not be coming from the normal places that you recruited everyone else on your team. Change is scary. If we want to have new ideas though, we have to go find new people. Did you know that OCX files are PE files too? OCX files are like ActiveX controls, and you can use them to execute code. And the interesting thing about an OCX file is you can load it in Microsoft Office as well as browsers. Okay, so what do we do? Jessica, you've given me like your life story and someone else's life story, and you kind of made me depressed and whatever. So how do we build security people? How do we do something besides just handing them a collection of tools and leading them to confusion? Because on the internet right now, you can literally learn almost everything you would need to be a great security person. Which things do you start with? What do you learn? How do you know what type of security person you want to be? Did you know that lawyers are security people? At Microsoft, we have an entire division of like 500 lawyers that are also like software engineers and help us do botnet takedowns and everything else like that. Politicians can be security people, right? Human resource managers can be security people. Like there's a lot of different ways to be a security person besides being a reverse engineer or a malware analyst. Like you don't have to be a red teamer, you don't have to do anything like that. There's a lot of different ways to success. We have all the tools available to us for free. So people can come from less enabled backgrounds and they can learn this stuff. But literally, how do you make sense of it? It's like IKEA. It's like putting together flat pack furniture. It's really confusing. So how do we make success a repeatable path? How do we make it something where somebody doesn't have to spend 20 years of their life wondering if they're going to become a dancer or a forensic pathologist or doing masonry repair? You can help, because you can do influence without power. You do not have to be a manager, a director, a CIO, or whatever at your organization to help start the change. You have the power. Because what you can do is you can impact people and you can help to change stuff just by yourself. Little actions that you take can enable other people to become security people, and you can help to build these sort of roadmaps to our choose your own adventure security way. So if we're going to continue to use video game metaphors, let's talk about single player. So what can you do just by yourself to help build security people? Well, the first thing that you can do is you can document what you know. right? Amanda, Malware Unicorn, is amazing at this. She's documented reverse engineering 101, and I've used it to train a lot of different people. This is cool, right? It may not seem like rocket surgery reverse engineering, even though Amanda's 100% capable of that. It may have seemed obvious to people who are reverse engineers, like, why are we documenting this? It has, in fact, changed multiple people's lives. I've heard of people getting jobs because they started with Amanda's training. So what do you know? What do you know? It doesn't matter if it's duplicated already on the internet. Your style of presenting it and your personal experiences and talking about it may be what makes the difference to someone. I know a lot about Kerberos as it relates to making Macs and Red Hat Linux work in Active Directory realms. Someone finds that useful. Another person might find Kerberos useful purely from an Active Directory perspective, right? Tell it from your story. Tell what you know from your story, document it so that other people know it. Even if you're new at it. So this is actually Michael and Justin's blog, where they are actually documenting their processes of building an attack framework so that they can actually see what the defense would look like. Because their current job allows them to see, well, what went wrong? We get a lot of defender telemetry of what went wrong, and they're very good at picking through it, but they don't actually get to see the attack side. So they said, what about in our spare time if we built an attack framework so we could kind of replicate it and see what signals we might be missing? And I was like, what's spare time? But this is what they're doing. They are literally they were working until midnight last night, working on making this so that they could actually replicate what was going on. You have impact and you have the capability to document something. This is not world-changing knowledge. They do talk about things that I've already blogged about, that other people have already blogged about, but it's a different perspective because it's the perspective of somebody who's looking at it from fresh eyes. So in single player mode, you can document things. You can make things better. And you can find gaps in existing documentation. Who's heard of logon type 9? Logon type 9 in Windows means that you're invisible. That's my present to you. My finding of a gap in documentation is because there's nothing like being up at 3 a.m. at an incident response and Googling for something and having your own name come up. And you're like, no, she doesn't know. You can also cause trouble. So in single player mode, you can break stuff before the bad people do. So we'll build Empire, Jared Hate build PS Attack, Bloodhound built by Andy and Rohan. This is stuff where I actually defend things and build antivirus signatures, and I love every one of those people. Because this type of work that you do as you cause trouble and break things before other people do, usually when we go back and look, someone has already been doing it, right? So if you want to break things, you can still help fix things. And you can find niches and gaps that didn't exist. Because Bloodhound didn't really exist before they made that tool. There were capabilities and there were enterprise-grade software, but then typical normal person like those people that sit in the audience of security conferences did not know that you could query the membership of the local administrators group on any Windows computer as a non-admin user. By the way, if you enable the Windows firewall, that doesn't work anymore. So you can do things from that perspective too. Bring what you have an experience of looking at broken things or your ideas about how you might break it. When we think about IT professionals do not get enough credit. People talk about let's get new people into code, let's have coding boot camps. Yeah, woo, coding. Coding is cool. I learned coding, I did do computer science in school. But you know who's really valuable too? The person who manages group policy and System Center and Ansible. Because you know what are really great ways to detect a network or to attack a network and have nobody detect you? Embed yourself in the Ansible system, right? So you can bring a perspective, even if you want to cause trouble and break things, from an IT perspective of how you would remain undetected on a network. So you can come from that perspective. Single player mode again. Embrace curiosity. Just mess around with stuff. Opening up Procmon and watching what queries a system, you will sometimes find these things called elevation of privilege. You will find literal ODE in Windows if you know what you're doing, right? Be curious. Learn how stuff is supposed to work. You can do TCP dumps. You don't even need to worry about having Wireshark. Fire up ye old Linux server and look what normal traffic looks like, right? Because MySQL should not be doing some of the stuff that you see it doing on the network. And understand the fundamentals, right? So this type of thing where people now have all these tools to enable them going forward, I kind of worry about Bloodhound in some ways because Bloodhound is so awesome and it is so cool. I'm afraid people are going to forget exactly why it works. And they're therefore going to not understand how to break it, right? So understand the fundamentals and then share the fundamentals because as we have these new security people coming on and they're taking pen test courses and they're taking college courses and they're exposed to wonderful things like Metasploit and PowerShell Empire, I actually interviewed someone the other day who is a fantastic hacker and has won multiple CTFs. They're very young, so they were very surprised when I told them they didn't actually need PowerShell Empire to create a reverse shell and you can do it natively with a batch file. And they said, what's a batch file? So, and I said, something that won't get detected by AV. And they loved me again, so it was okay. So understand your fundamentals and share those with people because the fundamentals that you learned may still be around, but people may have forgotten about them, right? This is why ICY Files, which is like this weird legacy thing inside of Excel, really, really did wonders for the Neckers botnet a couple of weeks ago because everyone forgot they existed. You can speak at things. Speaking at things is cool because as you speak at things, be brave. Your voice matters. A lot of times new people think, I don't have anything to say there. You know what I love? A talk by a new person about all of the things they screwed up as a new person on their way to becoming a good person, right? I have just revealed a lot of things I failed at. I try to be transparent as I do labs and I do documentation of this is hard. I screwed this up. I don't know why this works. If you want to give a talk at any conference that I'm on the panel of or the content advisory board on your new perspective, Kwa is a red teamer who gave a talk at Blue Hat that I recruited her to do because it was baby's first keylogger. It was literally the first keylogger she wrote. And other people were like, who cares? And I'm like, because it's about her journey. Oh, and by the way, her keylogger bypasses all the AVs on VirusTotal. So you can bring a new perspective, and it's actually interesting. So think that your voice matters, and this can be your single-player mode of thing. But you also don't completely go solo. Do a kind of a team match. Because if you work with others on your talk, whether new or old, this is where you get new perspectives. Some of the best talks that I've given have been where I said to somebody, I said, hey, you want to give a talk with me? And Gerald Steer and I did BSides Seattle last year, just simply because we wanted to. Thanks, BSides Seattle. And we just said, well, okay, we want to do a talk on red teaming you wish you were doing. And that was a really, really fun talk that totally wasn't recorded, so you're never going to see it. But we dropped O'Day, one or two. But as you work with people, you're going to make your talk better, and you're going to network with other people. And you're going to show something really, really important as we're trying to build security people. You're going to show that we are not single pillars of truth. We are a collaborative organization. Security people don't really have a reputation for being team players. We have a reputation for dropping 0 days on Twitter and doing bad things and all stuff like that. We do not have a reputation for being a kumbaya, come together, work together team. If you stand on stage with another person, especially if that person is a red teamer and you're a blue teamer, or if that person works at another company than you, I've presented with our competitors before, that's fun, you can show that what really matters is protecting people. That's what security people are here to do. We're here to protect people, right? So don't worry about egos, check them at the door, stand on stage with somebody who's different than you. Or don't speak at things. This is not a requirement. This is not a requirement. I am super thrilled that I actually got coerced into having speaking on my resume. I never, ever, ever, ever wanted to do it. I did a presentation for Microsoft because the other guy was sick. That presentation got 175,000 page views in 24 hours. So there was no turning back. You don't have to do this. You can be impactful in the community in ways that allow you to be shy and scared of people, right? You don't have to do this, but you can still work with people on one-to-one, smaller scale type of things. There's ways to be connected. So let's talk about team play, right? Because connecting is a big part of why I'm standing here, trying to make eye contact with as many of you as possible. So what can you do if you're trying to be a team player, if you're trying to actually work with others to build security peoples? Well, what you can do is you can give someone a chance, right? We sometimes have the capability to sponsor other people to do cool things. I sponsored somebody to go to DerbyCon training. It was something that I was able to do, so I did it, right? So this person is actually a very good reverse engineer who's having a hard time getting people to give her an opportunity because she's so junior. She goes to job interviews, she's learning, she's new, she's very young, and people say, well, you're just too junior for this role. So this is a problem of someone who is super smart and really studies because I sent her to a training and I made her do homework to prove that she'd been there. I'm a cruel mistress, sorry. But they're not giving her opportunities, right? So this is where we have another case of a person who is smart, who's not getting opportunities. So give somebody a chance, give them something they can put on their resume. It doesn't have to be DerbyCon training, it doesn't have to be super expensive, right? But you can work with somebody to, like, let's say, publish an app, right? You could do an Android app, you could do, help them get a web page, a blog type of thing out there, something on GitHub. If you give someone a chance, then they have something that they can reference that says, I'm not a new person. This is what I've done. So you can help. You can also be available. So all you have to do sometimes is just be there for people. So the Bloodhound Gang people are really, really cool because what they do is they actually are just available for anybody to come in and talk to them. So find a group like this, be available. Make roadmaps. You can actually make your own roadmap for somebody. Who knows how to become a Windows forensics person? I do. And I actually shared that roadmap on my blog somewhere. But you can think about, like, well, I am a reverse engineer, I am a Linux admin, how did I get here? Come up with your training plan. Like, start with this book, then you're skilled enough to go to this book, this one, this one, this one, and then publish it. Publish it somewhere where somebody can see. Mind meld. Go out of your way to partner with people who think differently than you. Go out of your way to sit in the room with an iOS jailbreaker if you're a Windows person. I have learned so much. Go out of your way to find the people who are different and maybe even against you. Some of my favorite people that I've learned from are the people who are actually part of the Xbox Underground, the group that was actually hacking Microsoft. That's cool. You can teach. So you can actually teach things. So when Jared and Sean gave this course on modern Windows attack and defense, I thought this was so cool. This was so fresh. This was so innovative because they weren't just teaching a defense course. They were showing you practically how these things apply. So if you want to build a security people, you can show them how this stuff applies in the real world because it can get really, really like losing hope and I'm going to go do something else if you don't understand that you're actually going to have impact. And when you do teach, go teach in unexpected places. Community colleges, high schools, homeless shelters. Did you know that a lot of the homeless people on the West Coast were accepted to Stanford before their parents kicked them out for one reason or another? I learned that when I moved to Seattle. Like, a lot of the people that are in the youth shelters in Seattle have really good educational backgrounds. They're just lacking opportunities. So there's a lot of places that you could go teach where you could do a lot of unexpected impact to somebody's life. Now there's sponsorship and there's mentorship, and these are actually two different things, and a guy named John Rodriguez taught me that in my first year at Microsoft. A lot of people ask for mentorship. Mentorship is like where you're actually teaching them how to do something, but there's also just sponsorship. Everyone that I showed you in this deck today just got sponsorship from me. Because what I did is I gave them opportunities, I gave them visibilities. What you can do is you can quite simply just take someone you know is smart and put them in the room with another smart person. Like, oh, you're building a security app, but you're not really good at C#? I know someone who is. That's sponsorship. Okay, so what if you want to do massively multiplayer mode building of security people? Well, security is not a global constant. Did you know that what you might consider to be a security thing here, like whether that be living to the letter of the law or a security setting, might not actually work in another country? There are certain group policy settings in Windows that you can set that will actually violate the laws of other countries because they're not allowed to have an enforced language. So if you set the home page to Google in English, you've actually broken the law. Cool. I learned that. But you need to learn this by understanding also your adversaries, because a lot of times in our news coverage nowadays, it's like, they're bad, they're bad, they're bad. Yeah, and they think we're bad. So, security is not a global constant. Think about it from learning the perspectives of other cultures. There's even things as you learn that security is not a global constant, when you look at an event log, the colors red don't necessarily mean the same thing in every culture. Like in a Western mindset, that means error. In other countries, it means, I won. You can start a movement, right? So join organizations, whether that be an established organization that's actually mentoring. There's the Rural Tech Fund. The Rural Tech Fund actually does a lot of work for donating to small schools and gets some tech things. You can change companies from the inside. You can help to actually change how a company is built and how it is by recruiting, recruiting, recruiting. right? And then you need to push back and actually fight for your recruits. Because if you hear something like this person is too junior or this person isn't good enough, well, then you make it so they aren't. And then you get them back in, right? You have to actually be able to do this type of stuff to get the global change. Or you can start something. There are opportunities to create small-scale organizations that will be able to change people's lives. If you want to create your own using Latte Panda small computer devices to go teach people how to code and do packet captures, that would be a relatively small investment. You would be able to help 20 or 30 people, and they would now know a whole different set of skills that they didn't know. So if there isn't an organization that you like, it's really easy to start one. You don't even have to bother with the whole nonprofit thing. But perhaps most importantly, escape the echo chamber. If you look at security Twitter, it's a whole lot of people talking to each other about things they already know. Okay, but what you want to do is you want to talk to people who don't know it, and you want to talk to people to get those different perspectives. If you talk to someone who actually uses software, they will explain to you exactly why all those vulnerabilities are there. 90% of what I know about comm hijacking comes because I worked at a law firm where all of the Outlook plugins required comm hijacking stuff. So you will actually learn why bad stuff exists and why it's hard to fix. You will also be able to connect with people who can help you fix it. Because if you escape the echo chamber and you actually talk to lawyers and politicians and C-levels who aren't technical C-levels, they will be able to help you enable and enact your change. If you want to enable and enact change by changing the face of the youth and what they learn, if you connect with a non-tech savvy teacher at an elementary school, you have now escaped the echo chamber and you understand why it's difficult. Talk to people who don't find what you do easy. For a lot of us, this probably came very easy to us. We were probably teenagers, we sat down in front of a computer and said, I got this. For some people, it doesn't work like that. Go find people who it doesn't come easy to. And what you'll find is you're capable of thinking outside of the box then. This is cute, huh? I'm just checking to see if you're paying attention. So if you can think outside of the box, that will allow you to innovate and change and also help to support those people. But the most important thing you have to remember is you have to remember empathy, right? This is empathy as we're designing security systems and as we're building the security people that we're working with. A lot of us made it to the way that we made it through those paths where we might have struggled, and we might have forgotten what it's like. We might have forgotten what it's like to not know what event ID 1102 is, or that rdpclip.exe starts when somebody logs in, even if you don't have a login type 10. You need to be able to understand the people you're working with, and you need to be able to understand their motivations for why they're doing it. And that's going to help you actually build these networks and be able to enforce those people. And you have to also remember that failure is always an option, and failure isn't a bad thing. Because if you try really hard at something, you learned something. If you fail at something, you absolutely took away everything that you learned at it. Chase dragons, in the words of Devin Kerr, because as you chase that dragon, you're going to either get a stronger sword arm or whatever the metaphorical thing would be. I do a lot of stuff that you never see, and I suck at it. And that's okay, because I keep trying at it and I learn from it. Whether that be stupid things like today, where I came out and gave a 100% non-technical talk and really didn't feel comfortable doing it. If I failed, it doesn't matter, because I learned something. And that's what we need to remember as we're teaching people and as we're building our new security people, to teach them that it's okay to fail and that they didn't actually ruin their lives and they can continue. Did you know that .movie files are PE files too? So these are localization files, and you can actually sideload with these too. It's really, really cool. Thank you for coming.